Hello everyone and welcome to IB Psych Revision. Today we're going to be looking at syllabus point 5.10, which is discuss the relationship between etiology and therapeutic approach in relation to a disorder. So we're going to be looking at major depressive disorder or depression. So before we get into it, it's worth looking at the command term. So in this case, it's discuss, and in the IB, discuss specifically refers to offering a considered and balanced review that includes a range of arguments, factors, or hypotheses. So we don't necessarily have to include only studies, but we can include theories as well. And the main thing is that we incorporate a number of arguments. So this dot point is really looking at causes or aetiologies and how that relates to the type of treatment that is given to a person. So the three main aetiologies that we're going to be looking at today are neurotransmission, cognition, and sociocultural factors. And before we get started, you might just want to note down the main relationships. So neurotransmission relates to drug therapy. Cognition refers to cognitive therapy. And sociocultural factors relate to group therapy. Okay, so let's discuss neurotransmission. We've already learned that what neurotransmission is. And in terms of major depressive disorder, it's assumed that there is a chemical imbalance in the brain, which is a physiological or biological malfunction. So the neurotransmitters that we are referring to here are the monoamine neurotransmitters, and these include serotonin, norepinephrine, epinephrine, and dopamine. And we want to include a study here to back up what we've just said. So Schildkraut notes that in individuals with depression, there is less synaptic activity of these transmitters. So if someone is suspected to have a chemical imbalance, we will want to treat it chemically as well. So the way that we do that is through drug therapy. And drug therapy is appropriate because antidepressant drugs work on neurotransmitters. We're just going to do a quick review of neurotransmitters. So the three main types, which are tricyclics, MAOIs, and SSRIs. So tricyclics block the reuptake of serotonin and norepinephrine so that the neurotransmitter stays in the synapse for longer and has a greater chance of the chemical message being passed on. MAOIs prevent enzymes from deactivating all the monoamine transmitters, and again, that increases the likelihood of the chemical message being passed on. And SSRIs are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and they function specifically on serotonin. And because they are more specific than the others, they are the preferred treatment for depression, or at least the first line treatment. At this point, we probably would like to include the relative efficacy of each antidepressant. So tricyclics, the depression guideline panel suggests 65 to 70% effectiveness rate when dropouts are excluded, otherwise around about 50%. And the same goes for MAOIs and SSRIs, approximately 50%. So that means that in 1 in 2 people, the drug will have a positive effect. Alright, so that's number 1. Number 2 is cognition. Now, cognition is is quite easy because the theorist and the theory are the same. And here we're going to be looking at Beck. And Beck's theory of depression relates to the negative triad. So the negative triad refers to negative thoughts about 1, the self, 2, others, and 3, the world or the environment. And these are what are known as maladaptive thoughts. So they impair functioning. They're not only not useful, but they're potentially harmful. And Beck's theory is that people who have these kind of thoughts are susceptible to depression. So he structured his therapy around his theory, and his theory is called Beck's cognitive restructuring therapy. So the main thing that we want to do in this therapy is combat those maladaptive thoughts. And the way that we do that is through hypothesis testing and replacement with positive thought patterns. So hypothesis testing is when the patient makes a statement and the therapist will help them question whether what they are saying is true or not, as there are a number of cognitive biases that exist in depressed individuals, such as maximization, minimization. So they'll tend to maximize negative events and minimize positive events. And this hypothesis testing is trying to get them to see where those biases might exist. And then once we've identified them, to replace them with more adaptive or more useful thought patterns, which are closer to reality. And Dobson's research of a meta-analysis of studies shows that cognitive therapy is the best treatment for depression. Okay, so thirdly and finally, we're going to look at socio-cultural factors. And specifically, we're going to be looking at vulnerability models. So there are 2 models that we're going to look at today. That's Brown's model and Hammen's model. So Brown posits that when people have specific protective factors, they are not as vulnerable to developing depression. And these protective factors are a strong sense of community and close bonds with others. Hammen posits that there are a couple of risk factors for depression, and these include dysfunctional family and high levels of stress. And people who experience such things may develop depression because in their childhood especially they have not developed effective communication and interpersonal skills. So group therapy aims to overcome this because the main point of group therapy is that we want to improve communication, and it necessarily involves communication, sharing, feedback, and trust building, because you need to be able to trust the people that you're sharing things with, that they won't go and tell someone else. And so participating in group therapy is a good way to develop those communication and interpersonal skills that may be lacking. Group therapy can also reduce feelings of isolation in depressed individuals, because they see that there are a lot of other people like them, and it can be a good source of emotional support as well, and social skills can be developed. So McDermott notes that group therapy is better than no therapy for 85%, and Tosland says that in some cases group therapy may be even better than individual treatment, but in no case was individual treatment better than group therapy. So that's it for this syllabus point. See see you next time.